Will inflation damage your railroad retirement? Welcome everyone to another edition of Highball Advisors Railroad Retirement Whiteboard. My name is John McNamara of Highball Advisors, and today I'm going to talk about inflation, right? You've been hearing a lot about it in the news, and I thought I'd do a video on how it's going to affect your retirement and what you can kind of do to prepare for it, kind of offset it. I don't know if you can ever completely offset it, but I'll give you some tips and some pointers on what to do. But first, let's step back. For those, what is inflation? So inflation is the cost of goods and services, right? How much, and normally inflation is the amount that goes up every year. You can actually have deflation where they go down every year, but we haven't seen that. But inflation, right? So normally prices go up around 2 to 3% in general, right? Food, clothing, energy, those type of things, 2 to 3%. Obviously, we've seen other things go up much faster than inflation. Maybe cost of college or health care, that type of thing. But in general, the cost of goods and services been rising lately, 2%, 3%. The Federal Reserve tries to keep it in check, keep it around 2%. However, we're coming out of a pandemic, a lot of money on the sidelines, government throwing a lot of money else around. So all this money is chasing a finite number of goods and services. Hence, the prices are rising. So we're now up to a 4.2% inflation rate from the last month of April's numbers. In fact, we actually saw, I think autos were up 10% for a month. I mean, imagine that. Oh my God. So as you see, there's inflation going on. So let me give you an example of inflation and how it affects your investing. So let's say you had $10,000 and you put it in the bank, you got 1%. Okay, the bank gave you 1% of the year, right? So if you had inflation running at 3%, your real rate of return is, I got 1%, but I lost 3%, is a negative 2%. So that's the power of inflation. It can really be damaging and crippling, especially in these artificial low rates, for sure. So that's the example of inflation. But as railroaders, let's see how we can address it, where our weaknesses are, what we're going to need to do, right? So this is kind of my railroader's guide to inflation. So tier 1, right, that first part that kind of replicates Social Security, that's going to move with inflation. So we're okay on that because every year the CPI, Consumer Price Index number, will come out and they'll adjust your monthly payments to the CPI number. So that's all right. We can sleep well on that. Now, however, tier 2 only moves at roughly about a third of inflation. So if inflation really starts heating up, your tier 2 isn't going to catch up with what the CPI number is. It will move up. It's better than nothing, right? Something's always better than nothing, but it's not going to move like the tier 1. And let's say you have a pension. Pensions are set. They're not inflation adjusted. So you have no wiggle room there. So if inflation gets out of hand, your pension's not going to keep up. So right now, the last part of your retirement will be your 401k, your nest eggs, right? The money that you've saved, or other investments that you have. So here's some ideas on investments, concepts, things that you want to think about as inflation heats up, right? So you have the inflation-protected bonds. They're called TIPS. So they'll give you a return, but they'll also adjust with inflation. So the returns aren't great, but at least you're protected by inflation a little bit. So those are good. If you are investing in bonds, short-term bonds, I like short-term bond ETFs. And why is that, right? Because if rates are going to be going up to protect ourselves against inflation, you don't want to be in a 30-year bond or a 10-year bond, that type of thing. Because you're like, well, my bond's at 1%, and now I could get 4%. So those bonds aren't going to be as valuable, so you could lose money on that. That's why short-term bond ETFs, they'll just keep buying short maturity type bonds because diversification is always important. I say that. So if you're going to be diversified into bonds, think along the short-term bond ETFs. A house is always great, right? Lock in these mortgage rates really low, right? You've seen the price of housing going up. It's going through the roof, no pun intended. But that's a great place. Just put some money into your house to get protect against inflation. Stocks, right? Another asset that's going to appreciate. I would lean more towards the consumer staple type stocks. Look at those things, things with purchasing power, pricing power, that type of thing. So those are some stocks. And then, I read a lot of articles. Everybody says gold. I'm not so big on gold. To me, gold is kind of a fear type index. Maybe if there's a geopolitical event or I don't know what's going on, but that's kind of more on gold. I'm not sure how great of it is as an inflation protection, but I put it up there for some people. You hear about it all the time. Maybe it's worthwhile. I don't know. But you can have a look at that. So this is kind of your guide. This is how you want to think about inflation and your railroad retirement. All right, so feel free to reach out to me if you want to go over some of these points. Go through my boarding for railroad retirement process. This will kind of help you address some of these inflation concerns that you might have. As always, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click on the notification bell at the bottom of the screen. You'll get the latest videos as I put them out weekly. And also keep sharing the videos. It's great to see them being shared. Getting a lot of great comments from railroaders from all across the country. So everyone, please, till next time, stay safe, stay on track, and take care. So long, everybody.